Hi, Robert Cook. Today we're going to be doing a tutorial on advanced analytics. This is going to piggyback off a lot of the other tutorials I've done, so if you haven't already checked out those other ones, I suggest doing that first. So basically today, what we're going to be doing is learning about the analyze statement, the prepare statement, and the ability to do a nearest join. So what we're going to do for starters is I'm going to grab two different tables, one that has my trades and another one that has market data. So I'm going to go ahead and search for those tables. So this is my executions. This is market data here. Next. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab an individual stock to make this simple, equals GLW, like that, and then I'll do the same thing here. So now I test that guy. We've got these two sets of data. I'm just going to rename this from my trades. I'll call this executions, and I'll call this market data. So now we've brought these two things in. And now the first thing I want to do is calculate the slippage between these. So let's start off by joining these two tables together. So I'm going to say create table executions as select execution dot star, comma, market data dot, and I'm going to grab the time and market data dot price from execution join market data on symbol or on execution dot symbol equals market data dot symbol, and I'll link it on time. So I'm going to say execution dot time equals market data dot time. Go ahead and run that guy. And interestingly, we can see if I turn off that limit, it brings them both in. We have 848 matches. So we have 848 times where our execution has the exact same time as the market data. Now, the problem is we want to consider executions that didn't happen at the exact same time as the market data, but we want to find that market data event that's nearest to that execution time. So I'm going to replace this with the nearest clause. So I'm going to say execution time nearest, and I want to take my execution time should be greater than or equal to the market data time. So let's go and run that test now. Now we can see we've got 3,424 executions. So we've got all of our original executions, but now if we take a look at the time, we're basically finding the one that's nearest that time, greater than or equal to it. So 943 went to 910, 928 went to 910, so on and so forth. So let me sort that by time so it's obvious what's happening. Now, the next thing I want to do, though, is calculate the slippage. So that's taking the price at a given time and subtracting it from the market data price at the nearest time. So I'm going to, instead of doing market data.price, I'm basically going to say I want to do execution.price minus market data.price as slippage. So now we're going to get that third column there, and that's going to give us our slippage. Okay, so now that we've done that, I'm going to go ahead and build a chart on this just so we can kind of visually see what's going on here. So I'm going to say test this query. Next, I'm going to go and I'll start by creating my chart on the market data. So I'm going to create a horizontal bar chart. I'm sorry, a horizontal line chart. On the x-axis, I'm going to put the time, and on the y-axis, I'm going to put the price. You go ahead and hit refresh there, and I'm just going to order this by time to make sure our line is going across from left to right. And now I'm going to say finish. So now we've got that market data. One thing I want to do is edit that underlying data model to make sure I've turned off the limit. So now we're basically going to pull in all of that data. And now I'm just going to clean this up a little bit, and then I'm going to add the executions on top. So first thing I'm going to do, going under advanced, I'm just going to change this guy from a circle to a square. And I'm going to change the width to 1 by 1 pixel. And I'm just going to hard code these guys to red. And I'm going to get rid of the border color because I don't need that. So let's go ahead and I'll use blue. So our background color is going to be blue. The line color I'll also make blue. And I'll just do a 1 pixel wide line. And I'm going to say go horizontal then vertical because this is pricing data. So now we've basically got this market data sitting in the back there. Okay, now I'm going to copy this layer. So copy that layer. I'm going to rename this one. I'll call this market data. Market data. That's going to sit in the background because that tab's to the right. In this tab, I will rename executions. Now, what I need to do is take that layer and I'm going to point it to the execution table instead. So this layer is sitting on executions. This layer is sitting on market data. So let me go back here to my executions and I'm just going to change the color. So instead of being blue, I'm going to make it red, so it's nice contrast there. We'll say 5 by 5, and for my executions, I'm not really interested in having a line at all. So now we can see our individual executions sitting on top of that market data. What I'm going to do now for the hover over, I'm going to keep it very simple, and I'm just going to show the slippage. So go ahead and do that. Hit apply. Okay, so now if I zoom in on one of these guys and I hover over it, now I can see what its slippage is. So this one's -4, it's below. This one's 4, it's above. And now I'm going to go and put some coloring to this so we can just get an idea, a visual idea of what's happening here. So plot, edit plot. Let me go back to my executions, and I'm just going to make my color a little bit more advanced. So I'm going to use a gradient. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the gradient function, gradient. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that slippage variable, and I'm going to say, I'll just say if it's -5, then I'll make it green. I'll make it red for negative. And then if it's 0, I will make it go to, let's say, black. And then if it's +5, I'll have it go to green. There we go. Click that twice. Okay, so let's see what I've done here. I've said if the slippage, using that, if it's -5, make it red. If it's 0, make it black. And if it's 5, make it green. Now, the reason we call it a gradient is because as it approaches these numbers, the color will change accordingly. So it'll fade in between black and green in that case. So as I zoom in here, now we can see the ones that are outside are green. If I went below, we're going to see the ones that are outside are red. So now what I want to do is, so we're calculating our slippage on a per execution basis, but now I want to actually aggregate that up to get an idea of the total slippage throughout the day. So what I'm going to do, edit underlying data model, and now we're going to use the prepare clause. So the prepare clause is actually a way of doing kind of Excel type of features. So in this case, I basically want to do an increment. I want to increment the slippage. So I'm going to say create table exec. So I'm going to replace it with itself. Create table as prepare star from exec. Now to be clear, if I do this, that didn't do anything. It just said, it just basically just passed everything right through. But what I want to do is now add a new column. So I'm going to say stack slippage. There we go. And it's important that I say order by time, just to make sure we're stacking across time here. So if you take a look at the very first, we've got a slippage of 5, total slippage of 5. Now we've got a slippage of 6, so our total's 11, 3 is 14, then we went down by 5, so we're back to 9. So this is now giving us a running sum of our slippage. So now that we've done that, I'm going to hit finish, and I'm just going to add a chart below that so we can see what our running sum of that slippage is. Add plot below. I don't need this much real estate for that lower one, and I'm going to go and add a plot to it. I'm going to do a 2D plot. I'm going to put it back on that execution table so it guessed the right one. Now on the x-axis, I'm going to say I want time, and this time on y-axis, I'm going to say I want the stack of the slippage. So I hit apply there, and now I should have just done a scatter plot there, and now I want to order the partition by time. Let's go ahead and hit apply. Marker size 2 pixels. Apply. There we go. So now that's our total slippage. I'll do it as a line instead. Line is 1. There. So now we've got our slippage over time. So this is basically summing up that slippage. So we can actually see throughout the day we were underperforming. We were doing better than the market here in the beginning, and then we started underperforming. And in fact, I'll make that more clear. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, instead of just doing a simple color here, I'm going to say if the slippage is less than 0, make the color red. Otherwise, we'll make the color green. So let's go ahead and choose that color, that green. There we go. And instead of just doing that for the marker, I'll do that for the line as well. Apply that guy. Did I get that? There we go. If it's less, if stack slippage is less than 0. Oh, probably the border color is overwhelming it. There we go. So we can see it's green there for that little bit. And then after that, it's just going red. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now, again, so we can see here for a little period of time, our slippage was better, and then it gets worse. But here's the next question. Let's say instead of just taking all the market data, individual quotes, we actually smoothed out that market data. That might give us a better idea of how we really performed against the market in aggregate. So I'm going to go edit the underlying data model. And I'm going to now introduce an analyze clause. So again, the prepare clause really is a way of taking one record after another and doing things like stacking up the data or looking at the difference from one record to the record before that. But I want to do an analyze clause. And an analyze clause basically says, I want to take a particular record and find all the records within a window and run some sort of comparative calculation between that. So we're going to do a smoothing or a standard deviation, because if you think about what a smoothing really is, you're taking a point in time and you're saying, I want to find out the average of all the records around that point in time. So that's what we're going to do now. And I'm actually going to do that on the market data itself. And I'm going to do that before we do this further analysis. So I'm going to say create table market data as analyze star, or actually I'm going to take the time. I want to take the average price, and I want to take the symbol and the quantity. I'm going to keep those things from market data, and now I need to create a window. So I'm going to say window, and I'm going to name this guy W. That's just the name of the window. I'm going to choose on, and I'm going to say the window's time should be greater than equal to the time, and I'm going to do maybe a 100 millisecond window. So I'm going to say the window's time should be greater than equal to the time minus 100, and the window's time should be less than equal to time plus 100. So now this window is going to incorporate everything over the 100 milliseconds before and the 100 milliseconds after each point in time. And I actually don't want to take the average of the price. I want to take the average of the price within that window. So if I go ahead and run that test there, unknown market data.px. Let's see what I got wrong. Let's go ahead and comment that out. I just want to take a look at that schema again. So it is px from market data. So let's see here. Unknown variable market data dot price. Oh, I need to name this as price. There we go. Okay, great. So now what I've done is I've said I want to now smooth it out. So I'm going to take the 100 milliseconds before and the 100 milliseconds after, and I'm going to replace this table with itself. I hit finish. So now the table looks a little bit more smoothed out. It's not quite as rough as it was before. And we can see that actually does have an effect on calculating our aggregate slippage. Edit underlying data model. Let's go ahead, instead of 100 milliseconds, let's make it a second. So we're basically going to average 1 second before and 1 second after. In fact, I'll do 10 seconds before and 10 seconds after. That'll be a little bit more dramatic. So now I hit finish. You can see that market data curve is getting smoothed out, and then we can see how the effect that's having on our aggregate slippage. Now I'm just going to go ahead and make this a slider instead, so we can play around with that price. I don't have to keep changing it inside there. So I'm going to say add panel above. Submit this. I'm going to quickly create a panel there. And now I'm going to add a slider field. I will call this window size. Window size. I'll just do win. And then I'll say here, I'm going to make it between 0 and 1,000 seconds. Hit submit. Now edit underlying data model. And I'm going to use that variable. So I'm going to create that. Now I've got this variable called win. And what I want to do, instead of hard coding to 10 seconds, I'm going to say win times 1,000. win times 1000, right? So whatever number we're passing in for the window, that's basically going to affect that window size. Test finished. And now if we've got a window size of 0, let me make this a little bit bigger so we can drag that more effectively. That up. There we go. So now, again, if I've got a window size of 0, we can see that. Let's say I make my window size 400 seconds. You can see it will take longer because now it actually has to calculate these large windows. But now, basically, we've got that average price, and you can see everything above it is green, everything below it is red, and then here's our slippage. So suddenly our slippage is in the positive. So this is the interesting thing about doing advanced analytics like this, is you can really start to understand what's going on at a macro level versus a micro level. So hopefully this gives you an idea of the different sorts of calculations you can do. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at support@3forge.com. Thank you.